Okay, I finally captured the third rodent, and this took weeks upon weeks to nab.
Ah, yes. Remember my rodent problem? Well, that got combined with a crapple problem. The fusion drive in my computer failed. Don't touch fusion drives. But I had a third rodent to capture. There was a piece of video where you saw the three rodents on top of each other, looking very cute. But I tell you, these guys aren't cute. These guys are very smart. This third rodent was really, really tricky to capture. It took weeks upon weeks to trick this guy to basically go into the trap and be caught. I was using cat food as a lure in these traps. That's what the rodents were coming and grabbing before I was starting to capture them. Let's take a look at the rodent in cage again. In particular, take a look at its attitude.
What I noticed about this rodent versus the second one that I caught is it's got a bit of attitude like the first one. If I come up near the cage, see that? It does all that sort of activity. And maybe it's telling you something about this rodent, whether it's a boy or a girl, in the way it does that. Just like the other rodents I use, the Arlo camera system, it's basically a security camera system that can be used for other things. I use it for other things. And what I saw was this rodent, wow. I'm hoping it was the same one all the time because, well, I think it was because it had an ability to clear out the trap of the cat food. And I had to set up this trap in a very, very particular way to nab this rodent. When I capture the rodent, I put this cloth over the trap, and what has been a very common thing is they tend to pull, look at that there, they must be strong little critters, eh? They pull the material into the trap. Oh, but not, see, it wants to bite me too. Man, they are strong because it is really hard to pull that back out. And there's another spot there, it's pulled the cloth in to the trap. How does it do? Oh, don't you come near me. Play nice, please, because I'm going to be nice to you. Smells like the first one, very strong odour. Yes, look, you might love these little critters. They are sadly highly destructive, and as I'm working out, I've got lots of them around the house. To get this trap to trigger with this rodent here, I had to put some of this bike chain lube on. I was trying to put on something that didn't have too much of a smell because these critters tend to be very, well, sensitive on the nose. And just to show you what had to be set up correctly here, the rodent's on the pressure plate at the moment, and that arm that I'm moving there is what has to be, well, the pressure plate needs to fall down, and then the trap triggers in a sense and releases the door at the other end. I had to set this up. There was only the tiniest amount of pressure required to trigger it, and also have it lubed up with that bike chain lube.
This rodent is extremely smart. It's got the knowledge that its little friends have mysteriously disappeared once this metal cage has been around with food in it. With the security cameras, I could see the way it was acting around the cage, and initially it had no desire to go into the cage, but it was very inquisitive for the fact it was there, and it knew that there was food in there, but it didn't want to go up into the pressure plate because it could sense there was something dangerous about this cage. There's so much video from those little Arlo cameras of what this rodent got up to. I won't bore you with everything I saw, but it let me understand what I was up against for the fact this rodent was extremely cautious. About the only thing I thought I could do was what I was doing before with rodent 1 and rodent 2, and that is trickle some cat food along the inside of the cage up to the pressure plate. So sure, the rodent would get an easy feed and get accustomed to going inside the cage, but still, this took many, many weeks to get that rodent to be very happy to go up onto the pressure plate for food. And then it had this miraculous ability of being up on the pressure plate and still the trap wouldn't trigger, so I had to set this trap up in a very special way, and I think I've already spoken about that. Another thing I noticed was this rat was very consistent in the timing that it was coming to the trap at night, because the Arlo system was telling me the time. But in the end, my persistence won, and I loved the sound of that rat trap getting triggered. This guy was very smart, and hopefully I learnt a little bit along the way as well, in particular the way the rat would get the food from the pressure plate. All the rats were really good at reaching up to that pressure plate area and not putting too much weight on it. And with the next rat infestation that came along a few months later, I had a new method of putting food inside these traps which made them much more successful. But that's a story for another rat infestation video. And considering it was such a tricky rat to capture, it also played up when it came to the release. Obviously, I didn't pay this rat enough money to perform in front of camera.
I've just got to remember the bit to pick up. I think it's that bottom bit there, yes, to release the rodent. Okay, and this tends to happen rather quickly because, well, they don't like to be kept in little cages, do they? Okay, if I bring this up. Go, baby, go. Come on. It went the wrong way. It never went in front of the GoPro. And what I'm hoping is it will marry up with the other 2 rodents that I've released down here and not go back to my place.
When it comes to rats, I'm fairly naive. I did notice some people laying in comments on the Rat 1 and Rat 2 videos saying this is the beginning of a much bigger problem, and those people were correct. Rat 3 was captured roughly in March, and it took way too long to capture Rat 3. By the time July came around, we noticed in the backyard lots of rat activity. The Arlo cameras let me see what was going on. In fact, I'd categorise it as a full-blown infestation. We had numbers of rats like I'd never seen before. It was a drought time in Australia. It looked like the rats were trying to find food. We had over 20 rats active in the backyard. Those little security cameras I've got really helped me understand this problem. This became a very difficult thing to deal with. We're in the middle of winter and I had to morph the food to attract the rodents, and I also had to morph the systems that I was using to capture them because the humane capture method, the problem with it is it takes too long. Smaller rodents can go into those wire traps and basically not set them off. It was such a tricky thing to deal with. It was unfortunate I had to go to other trap methods, but I had to get rid of these rodents. And again, those little security cameras, luckily I've got a few of those, they really helped me understand where the rats were getting about in the backyard and how they were interacting with the traps. But to my astonishment, there was this one rat. It was enormous. It was basically the size of a trap. I dare say it was the king rat. It was impossible to capture. It was extremely cautious. Unfortunately, I couldn't get that giant rat. This whole saga becomes another video and I delve into the industry of rodent control. Crikeys, it's a deep subject. I just hope in all this we have learned something in this rat escapade. Or else I'm in some serious trouble again.